okay? All right. Because you did
Harrison on the phone.
I didn't.
John, will you close that door, please?
It's constantly one word against the other.
Okay, what I need is an approval. You guys are involved too.
We might bring things up.
For minutes.
You might not want to be brought up.
For minutes from the March 14th, 2023 for the Coulter Levy District and the CR Levy District meeting. Someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Who's
Okay.
that?
Brian Wright?
Ryan or Brian?
Brian.
With a B?
Yes.
Okay.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, I got a second from Belt. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those-
Did you get on the YouTube?
Those against? Motion approved. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do an open, or a public hearing on the report of the appraisers to acquire and modify right-of-way for the CR Levy District. Melvin, would you do a roll call, please?
We need a motion first.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. It's Tuesday.
Make the motion to go into public hearing?
Which one of those people here, though, did you say?
Need a second?
Yep. I'll second.
Okay,
John Straight.
John, right?
Yep.
All right.
would you do a
Chairman-
roll call?
Okay, Brian Shea,
Aye.
Susan Miller,
Aye.
John Straight,
Aye.
Tim Wickman, Scott Bell,
Aye.
and Brian Reed.
Aye.
Okay.
What's your name? Nope, behind you.
Larry King.
Larry King, okay.
So there's, all three of you are here, right?
I can't see that. I can't see it.
Tony's not here.
Okay,
He's supposed to be here, but I don't see him.
okay.
I'm just a trustee on the drainage district.
Okay,
On which one?
Commissioner. Commissioners, or commissioners.
On,
Commissioners.
oh, okay.
okay.
It's up to you.
Who wants to start us off?
The last one.
John?
Yeah, I can start us off. I'm trying to pass out some exhibits here, sorry.
Need some help?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
The last moment. What the heck is this?
What's the other guy's name that's not here?
Tony Smith.
Tony Smith, okay.
Yeah.
Is he coming?
He said he was on Thursday.
Thank you.
No, where are we getting it now?
This is from the engineer.
The last moment, okay.
My apologies, I got tucked in there early on.
What is this? What is it? What is it showing?
So the first thing I'm handing out here is the appraiser's report. This was reviewed by myself, John Erickson and Larry King, they're in the back row, one from Harrison, one from Potawatomi County, and was the recommendation for compensation for right-of-way for the CNR
Hold on a
levy.
second, hold on. Hey, can we keep it down a little bit, you guys, so we could hear? This guy's talking, we're right in the middle of the meeting, so please go ahead.
So the appraisers reviewed the properties on which the levy will be placed on the back of your packet, there's a map, or the large map that was handed out. That right-of-way is highlighted in purple on the big map. It's shown in red on the smaller map. That is for the placement of the levy, number one. So we broke it down into 3 zones corresponding to what was presented in the engineer's report back in May. No, that's the recent one. That would have been back in September, I believe. You guys remember when the hearing was on the CNR?
December.
Was that in December? Okay, sorry about my timing. So back in December, so this is to purchase the right-of-way to move forward once we have a permit to build the levee. Also included in this is 2 stockpile locations, one at the south end on Frank Wagner's property, not shown on this map. A second one up here at the north end on the Dale Coulthard property.
Where's the one on the south?
The one on the south is just north of DeSoto Avenue. Right in this area, that is, do you have a copy of that report, Linda? I can grab it here. That specific piece, I believe, is 4 acres.
Say, I read up here. So the stockpiles aren't on the McIntosh property?
There is a stockpile on McIntosh property. McIntosh and Otto, the two owners, opted not to sell right of way, but instead have offered to rent the ground to the district for the duration of the stockpile. That offer is actually available to either the Coulthards or the Frank Wagner property.
Where is that?
The McIntosh property.
Yes.
So that is this narrow area right here on York Avenue, right on the county line. So half of it is
Okay.
north in Harrison County, half is south in Potawatomi County.
So York is the county line.
Yes.
Okay, so.
So to come up with valuations for this project, because the ground is so variable out there, the commissioners felt it was easiest to assign a value per CSR point, which is a typical way for land valuation. We went through the project area, and that's the large map in front of you, and looked at the soils on which our project lay throughout the whole district, to come up with an average CSR within each farm unit, as we call it, a single property.
Have you guys seen it from Harrison? Are you seeing it the first time here?
I've seen it before.
No, but behind you
I
there.
have.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
We looked at current sales have typically been around 165 per CSR point. Throughout the state, that's kind of the going rate, or was at the time of that appraisers meeting. Maybe going up slightly, but the appraisers opted to go 165 plus, and we went to 169 per CSR to give a little bit of a premium for those lands. So that is for the levy right of way itself. We then calculated within those stockpile areas at the north and the south, the same method. And that is attached as the 6th page of the report. Dale E. Coulthard and Frank Wagner. Again, we'll talk about the McIntosh and Otto stockpile here in a little bit. I did send a follow-on amendment, because if you look at the stockpile site value on the Frank Wagner property, it's significantly lower than everybody else because it happens to hit a small area of poor soil right near DeSoto Avenue and clearly out of whack with everybody else's values within the district. So we're recommending increasing that 2,145 per acre for the stockpile site to the
I can't
same
hear him back here.
9,730.
You can't hear him?
I can't hear him back, he's
Okay.
talking to you.
Increasing that 2,145 per acre to the same 9,735 that the rest of the
Is
Wagner
that the
property.
59 CSR?
Yes, bringing it up to the,
59?
No, the 9, yeah, regulated 9.
Yeah.
but equivalent to a 59 CSR, yes. Yep.
So it's 59 straight through then?
No,
Yeah, for all of your property, which varies. We got some very good soils, some poorer soils, a lot of mid-range soils. Yes, the whole average is now
I was
59.
under the impression that, all these years that my CSR, which I'm very familiar with, those numbers, was a 62. That's what I was told, and the average was 62. And so.
Yeah, and looking at the map,
You got pretty close at 58, I think it's 58, right? Is that what you said?
59.
59, right? On the kids, on the land to the east of me, right? You have him listed at, I think it's 51.
Sorry,
And by the way, I think he has a much higher average than 51.
Kinsinger I have listed as a 68.
A what?
68.
A
So,
what?
68.
Okay, is that on the, wait a second here, is that on the street,
it should be, yes.
Front page.
John,
Yes.
why are we bumping that up? Is that something in good kind, or?
Yes, because of the damage, we're gonna do that particular spot
Okay.
with the stockpile, which will come up in an objection from autos and Macintoshes here in a little bit.
Okay,
Even if we were to rent that area, it needs to be significantly higher than normal rental rates because of the amount of compaction that land would deal with.
okay,
This area
there's kids.
is not gonna be any part of the permanent levee structure. It'll be returned to farming afterwards, but they need to be compensated something
and they want to
appropriate
remediate.
for remediating the compaction and other damages that would occur there.
All right,
John, just a clarification, I think you mentioned it was bumped up to 169, but the value's on sheet are 165.
It's 165.
165.
Yeah, if you go over easement, but
Yes, sorry.
No, but that's a change though.
Corey's pointing out, I got confused on my numbers. The market is around 159, 160, and we went to 165. But it's, we still put a premium on the market value. There is a third piece on Don Brothers that is shown, if you go to the map at the back of your packet, there's a third piece. Frank, did you get a copy of that report?
Is it this?
You got that big map as well.
Yes.
Yep. So just so everybody knows, there's a third piece, showing that light blue. We talked about that being different than the purple. Hard to see that difference right here. There's a small piece, about four and a half-ish acres on Don Brothers property that fills in between two previous right-of-ways purchased by the Colford Levy District. That is essentially for backup borrow material. If we run short somewhere else, we've got this location on site. Dirt work's always been an interesting thing, no matter how much fluff we put on the number, we seem to always find things we need more dirt for. And so having something local that we can go get that dirt from at a reasonable price is invaluable. So we are including that piece in the right-of-way acquisition. That is shown on, if I find my report again, shown on page 6. The Don Brothers borrow is shown here on the last page. This is a separate purchase from the actual right-of-way for where the levee sits. The borrow area is actually in a poor quality section of the field, but that piece will not be returned to farming. It'll be totally destroyed at the end of the project. It'll be gone. It'll be taken for borrow. So we did bump up that value. Aside from the CSR, we bumped it up to 12,000, which is more than what the CSR would calculate to, because different than the stockpile areas, it'll be gone. The stockpile areas can be returned to farming. It will take many years for that to come back to full production, and that's where the rental payment or the right-of-way purchase payment are intended to help cover that duration.
Okay.
The brothers borrow is separate.
we have the money for this.
Yes, so in the report from December, the estimated cost for all the right-of-way for the project was just over $1 million. A big chunk of that was the additional borrow, which was planned to be taken out of this section 35, where the rest of the borrow has been coming from on the Coulter project. Because we've eliminated that, we're actually down to about $615,000, so fairly sizable savings.
Can you repeat that so I can hear it?
So the district has saved, has gone from about $1 million in total estimated right-of-way cost, eliminated 30 acres of easement in section 35, which would have been borrow, because we're able to import from outside of the project area. We are down to $614,000, so a savings of about $400,000 to the project.
How did you do that? I missed how you did that.
Because in that report, we had assumed purchase of essentially the entire southwest, the south half of the southwest
Okay,
quarter of section 35. I said that wrong. The south half of the northeast quarter of section 35.
so by
But because we
doing that,
limited
so
that,
how do you do that though? How do you,
because the dirt is coming from off-site,
Yeah.
it's coming from Nebraska, rather than having to take out this farmland here, we're able to spend that money on bringing in dirt from outside the project area.
and that was agreed to by the owner?
Yes. Is there any other? That's the process for coming up with this. Again, the stockpile areas, we want to keep those close to land value because the cost of restoring those after the project is going to be high. So making sure that we have enough in there to compensate for that. In those cases, the district will actually own those. But I think making a statement to the effect that no permanent structures will be built by the district there would be fair, because we don't want these as borrow areas long-term because it's on the wrong side of the levee. We're not buying it to build stuff on, we're buying it just for temporary stockpile. Sorry.
Your girlfriend's
Yeah.
You feel we have enough money in to remediate that stockpile spot, 4 acres? The one we have to rework?
I believe so. So part of the contract would be to deep rip that area. That'll be part of the objection from the McIntosh land, is that the area be deep ripped and left in a condition that they can at least traverse it with rubber tired agricultural equipment. Even with that, breaking up that compaction, I believe in the objection core, you got it at 60 inches, which is deep. It's gonna take a large dozer to do that, but we'll have that in the bid up front, and that'll be for all 3 of these borrow sites that are used.
Okay.
Not borrow sites, stockpile sites that are used. Even with that deep rip, it's still gonna take a long time just for that to restore back to original productive condition.
5 foot deep.
So what we're doing with those stockpile sites is, you've seen it down at Manawa. That's how you compact that ground for a building. You know, you pile dirt on it, you let it sit. We're not letting it sit as long as they would down at Manawa. But it's still gonna do a lot of compaction. Probably 65 to 70% of the compaction happens in that first 6 months. So it'll need that 5 foot rip, and even then, it'll still take time to come back.
Question,
Yes.
can you tell me, the exact amount of acreage in the southwest quarter? Between we've got taking it right away and the stockpiling. There's 2 different numbers there.
Yep. On your property, you're asking.
Southwest.
So,
What section is that, John?
Section 2.
yep. So 4.18 acres for the stockpile?
1 second, 4.2,
Yes.
2 acres, 4.2 acres.
Yes. And then the southwest for the levee right of way. We talked about this one. This was one that was, we had to add together, was that right? No, that shall be the same. Southwest in section 2 for the levee right of way is 2.54 acres.
Okay, 2.54.
Yes.
So the stockpiling acres, it almost doubled then, right?
Correct.
Okay, and you say that, I heard you say that because of compaction on that's farmable land right there.
Yes.
Okay, so what about the compaction? You just mentioned
Yeah, so the at the end of the project, the contractor will be required to deep rip that to 5 feet of depth and leave it in a condition that a rubber tired tractor can disc it or rip it or do whatever work needs to be done to it from that point forward.
So then the question is, we have no idea what you're offering for compensation for stockpiling in the southwest.
We're offering the 9,735 And drainage districts do not typically pay damages for right-of-way that's purchased.
Okay, repeat that again.
So owned right-of-way, land that the district owns as right-of-way, does not receive a damage payment. So the purchase of the ground through the right-of-way process
Right.
is intended to be that compensation.
So what's the number in dollars then for that stockpiling?
$735 times 4.78, $40,692.30.
Say that again?
Say it again.
$40,692.30.
Yeah, 30 cents. Is that what that says? That's different from what you're just.
It's more.
Yeah,
It
so,
was this. No, this.
so the amendment is showing the increase.
Yeah.
So I believe the amendment says 31,000,
Yes, it does.
31,726 should be that plus. Yeah, so it's 8,966
So
plus the 31,726.
for the stockpiling, you're offering in compensation 40, is that right, 40,000
Yes,
Yes.
for stockpiling?
yes.
Okay, then, but actually the value that you're putting on it is based on CSR, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I assume, because it's all verbal at this point, that the the constitutability rating on the Southwest is 59. Is that right? Is that a good
Yes.
assumption?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I want that in the record, by the way. Okay, that's a 59.
Harrison County, do you guys got any questions? Speak up when you do.
We're just a little fish here.
Nuh-uh, you guys dumped this on us, you better be speaking up. You're the big fish.
So the right of way, what you said was 2.54 in that same area, southwest, it was the right of way, 2.54 acres, right? Which is exactly half, no, not, it's almost half of the,
4.18.
yeah. And both those figures are based on 59 CSR.
Yes.
John, how'd you get that 59? Did you do it?
It's a weighted average
Okay.
of the levee on that property. So we found the 80-foot wide footprint of that levee through the whole property. It varies, down at that south end by DeSoto Avenue, it's a CSR of 9. But then we've got several areas that are 86s. So there is very good ground we're going across, but it's weighted because some small areas of that are poor quality ground.
It was the first.
It was supposed to be up in the mountains, great.
And the stockpile
John,
site
you
is
got any
actually a
questions?
9 CSR, but you're paying it as a 59.
Yes.
That's compensation.
Yeah, it actually comes out to, because there is some better ground, it comes out to an average of 13, because a large portion of it's very poor, but we are recommending the 59 CSR payment.
Okay, what else you got, John?
So I know there are 2 objections. I've addressed some of the concerns of the McIntosh one so far. I have not yet seen Frank's objection from this morning. We have talked, but I have not seen what actually came in.
Are we talking about the letters that came in?
Yes. And if you're okay with it, Frank, I'm gonna start with the McIntosh one because I think we can get through that simpler and then we can deal with your concerns. This one is Frank, we have Corey's. Yeah, Corey's there behind you.
Lyle's sick today.
And I think what we'll talk about here might be something that you'll want to talk about as well, Frank. So that Corey Lyle, it's signed by Corey Lyle, Tom McIntosh, and John Otto. John Otto will be the owner of the Harrison County side of that stockpile. The other 3 are owners of the McIntosh property. Dear Supervisors, as you're aware, the CNR levee district has begun the import of dirt material to be used for construction of the new levee. A significant portion of this material is being temporarily stockpiled on land near the Harrison-Potawatomi County line owned by the undersigned individuals. We understand the logistical need for the stockpile and the reasons why our land was selected as a suitable stockpile site. However, we have made it known to the project engineer, John Rosengren, that we do not desire to sell the permanent easement to the CNR levy district for the stockpile site. Yet, we expect to be fairly compensated for the extreme amount of compaction and subsequent long-term detrimental impacts that this massive and deep stockpile will cause to our land. This method of stockpiling dirt to a great height and leaving it in place for a long period of time is similar to the techniques used by contractors to compact construction sites for large buildings and industrial projects. After this stockpile is removed, the resulting compaction damage to the underlying ground is expected to be severe. After discussion with engineer Rosengren regarding the experiences with extreme compaction on other projects, we've determined that it may take 10 to 15 years to fully remedy compaction and return this land to its prior productivity. We therefore submit that the rental compensation for this stockpile site should be made at a rate of $140 per CSR 2 point per acre to reflect this long-term damage. 140 per acre is 65% of what, or no, 85% of what we recommended in our report.
For how many years?
It would be a one-time payment like right-of-way, but at the end of the project, the district does not own the right-of-way.
Okay.
Okay, I missed the number you gave that.
140 per CSR 2 point.
140
Yes. So
plus.
let me just double check. 140
per-
over,
Oh, per CSR, okay.
comes out to almost exactly 85% of 165.
John, I've got a question. Maybe this ain't the spot, but when it floods there, do we not get heavy compaction also?
Yes, you would, but I would say it'd be to a lesser extent. It's gonna be more from the wetted soils just settling. Which for the most part is gonna be able to be broken up. It may take a couple of years, but broken up by normal field operations.
Okay.
To ensure that our existing topsoil remains intact when the stockpile is removed, we stipulate that the site be left with a level profile and a 4-inch layer of imported material on top of the site. We expect that after stockpile is removed in the manner as described, the site will be deep ripped at levy district expense to a minimum of 60 inches on 12-inch shank centers in order to break up as much compaction as possible. After deep ripping, the levy district must leave the soil surface in a condition over which a wheeled agricultural tractor can travel, pulling a medium weight agricultural disc at a reasonable speed. If the above compensation and restoration conditions are met, then the landowners agree to assume responsibility for continued remediation of the compaction effects thereafter. It should be noted that the above terms for site rental compensation are not inclusive of crop inputs invested by the landowners or tenants for the 2023 crop year. And that's a good point. I did not say that. I would say this right-of-way is separate from whatever crop damages we have for this year. So those areas that have already been planted or fertilized for this year at the end of the project should be paid those input costs as well. And we do have a line item in that original cost estimate to pay those damages as well.
Just speaking for myself, I think that's a fair deal. Do you not?
Yeah, I've talked to Corey and Lyle, and I'm pretty much on board with everything they've got in here. The slight
Are you
reduction
guys-
in payment
This board?
essentially accounts for not receiving permanent easement at the end.
Where'd you come up with the 140? I know you didn't just pull that number out.
Yeah, well, just in discussion with John, the fact that, that we think that it's gonna be a 10 to 15 year process to restore it over time.
And you're talking about something you can't really know. How much actual yield loss do you have over that time period? Even at 15, we're assuming it gets back. We don't even know that, and so it is kind of a nebulous number, and so trying to pick something that seems reasonable, I think comes out to,
We were just trying to, really John said the effects on the ground are gonna be the same, whether it's easement, purchase, or rental. We were trying to reflect a number that showed that we're retaining ownership rights by taking a lesser percentage, that the district won't own that long term. That was really the discussion we had with John.
Yeah, and that's part of why I wanted to talk about this first, Frank, is that is an option for you. But to be
Tell me
clear,
what the option is.
the option would be instead of the district owning that stockpile site permanently, we could rent it for the duration of this project at that 140 per CSR. Well, at 59
Yeah,
CSR,
59,
not
but
the
that
lower
59,
one.
by the way, is a verbal figure. There's nothing in here that says 59, on the stockpile.
Right, the stockpile is a 13 CSR, but
Right,
we're,
there is no 13s on that property. 13 is blow sand, right?
But he's
Okay.
giving.
yeah, I'm saying we're gonna pay you the 59
Okay.
CSR.
Okay.
But it would be at 85% of that 9,735. But the district would not own it. It would remain.
So what's the advantage?
So I can tell you the advantage of right-of-way is that if it's in right-of-way, you do not pay taxes that would be taken up the county tax rolls, and you do not pay drainage assessments.
Right.
The risk is that the district owns it. If they ever need, at some point down the road, they need to park equipment there for a project, they own that right-of-way. They wouldn't have to pay you damages for it. But that's, hopefully 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, we're not back here.
Well, I'm 92 years of age. I don't give a damn about 50 years. That's all.
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute.
So, I know from talking with Lyle and Corey, and I believe John Otto is of the same opinion, their main concern is they don't want to have a spot that, again, 50 years down the road could be taken as, we've got right of way, we can go dig that up and use it for borrow. They want to just make sure that that's protected and that can't happen. I don't see that happening. I don't think any reasonable engineer is going to want to dig a deep hole on the land side of the levee when there's any other option available. That would be the absolute last resort, which was our last resort on the Colter. That's one reason we were doing it.
But he's thinking way ahead.
He's thinking way ahead. He doesn't
Yep.
want to have that risk that could happen without them having input on it in the future. And so that option would be on the table for you. It'd be slightly less payment, but you would retain control. You don't get the tax benefits of it being right of way, but you still own it and have full control of it after the
The only
project.
concern I have about those two options is I have nothing in writing except what you're saying right now. And I want the supervisors to agree with you with this and put in writing, because right now, everything is changed for us.
Yep.
From what you and I talked about, we have changes. And the changes bother me because I have no idea right now how many acres you're taking from us. I mean, in the right of way. I have no idea about that figure.
For the levee right of way, it is 9.93.
Is that based on the one that goes to Wilson Lane, or is that the one based going around the lake?
That's the one going around the lake, which is actually more, and we can talk about that right now. In discussions with Frank over the last 2 months, probably
No,
different.
it's actually a lot less than 2 months. But go ahead.
But we've been having discussions.
Yes.
The map right now reflects extending up into a 3.2 acre parcel he owns right adjacent to the lake, which was not part of the original project. A very minimal change overall. During our discussions, he thought it would be beneficial to include it. As we've gone on, he would rather go back to the original plan, which was to go straight across the south side back to the original plan.
That's the plan, by the way, so everybody knows. That's the plan that was voted on at the last meeting,
That's right.
right? All we're doing is going back to what's in writing,
That's right.
okay? Which means that 3.12 acres in the northwest quarter, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way it's defined, except for the map that I gave you.
Okay. I'll show you all where that's at.
Okay,
We're talking about right here, this piece that extends up. So we're gonna go straight back across and then up on the Kinzinger property.
how far over?
So I believe that's about.
Right here?
Yeah, it's about
Line?
600 feet. We'll go to Wilson, the old Wilson Lane and then up north,
Okay,
which is what was in the original plan. So it'd be right,
Okay.
you go straight across to the east and then up on the Kinzinger side of the property.
Frank, why are you wanting to do that?
Say it again,
Why are you wanting to do that?
to go straight across? Well, that's the only thing that was voted on.
Okay, no, I'm
Everything else-
just,
Everything else it was an option that was discussed, but nothing was, I was never told, I accepted that, the option.
okay,
It was just talked about. And then all of a sudden, at the last moment, like to be exact, the 24th day of, no, the 28th day of March, no, April, I mean, the 28th day of April is when I found out that, that you didn't want that option up there, right?
For the stockpile?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when I found out you didn't want it.
Well, so the original proposal was always to put it down here at the road. You asked us to put it up at the north end.
No, I
but
said
we
to him,
went-
I said, it makes more sense to put it up there. Because when you look at the map, you can go in both directions with that stockpile. But the way it is now, being way down in the corner, you still have to come around. And I don't know if you're gonna go up Wilson Lane, you say, no, I'm not gonna do that. But in one of your reports, you say that's an option for you, not for me, but you, that they can use Wilson Lane.
Yes.
Okay, do you admit that?
In the report in December, yes, that was
So
listed
you
as
can,
an access
you
point.
can say, pull out as a blue sky and say, okay, we're gonna use Wilson Lane. And that was never an option for me, never.
So can we determine today whether you will be using that lane or not?
We will not use that lane.
Okay, and that will be in writing somehow?
Yes, we can, with the discussions we're having here with that change in right of way, I would say, going back straight across, I'm not gonna change Frank's number for the compensation. It's actually a little bit higher where it's at. We would adjust up Kinsinger's slightly because there are a few more acres. With those changes, I'm gonna write an amendment, and I can include in that amendment that we will not use Wilson Lane during the construction.
Right.
That will not be an access point for
The other
the,
question then is, when you go straight, when you go from west to the east on the north line,
Mhm.
which is exactly the same, running footage as the west line, they're both the same.
yes.
On a square 140, 160. Anyway, I don't know what those, you have a whole bunch of numbers, not a whole bunch, but you got some numbers. You have no numbers, I have no numbers on that portion in the south, in the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter. I have no, when it runs, when you run that thing to Wilson Lane, I have no numbers on that. How many acres is in that
We
area?
have no numbers on that. We have,
Was that the 3.12?
well, that's the one that's a little bit more complex because there's actually a parcel split in there. So the northwest, southwest would be the bulk of that you just described. The northwest, southwest is 3.39 acres plus, which one is it? I believe it's this 1.31, northwest, southwest of government lot 6, northeast, southwest, and east 605. That's this one over here.
When you're figuring out those numbers, why don't you give me the number, the entire length of that north line from west to east?
It'd be right at a half mile.
Yeah, I wanna know what's the numbers on that. The whole works, I forget about the little breaking it up, the whole works.
Right. So the southwest is the 2.54. Everything else would be that northwest, southwest, and the northeast, southwest. So
Numbers
it's
together,
3.39 plus 1.31 plus,
2.54, what is that, what
no,
is that at?
not the 2.54, 2.69 plus 1.31.
I don't have any 6.9.
right there.
I wanna know what the entire length of that north line is.
Okay, that's what we're thinking. 3.39.
So this one here is 2.54. This here and along here is 7.39.
Why there's the difference? They're both exactly the same lengths. The west line is exactly the same.
Because I don't have it broken at this corner right here. I'd have to split it at that corner, and I don't have that. What I can do is,
You don't have the number on the corner?
I don't have it split down to that degree of accuracy in this report. So 2640 times 80 43,560. So the north line should be 4.8 acres plus a
Wait a
little
second,
bit.
here you're going too fast.
4.85 acres.
4.85 acres in the whole north line.
From here to here.
Well, in theory, it goes to here, so there's a little bit more.
Well, I wanna know what that little bit,
Yeah,
I
I
wanna know
don't,
what the
I'm telling you, I
total
don't
length
have,
is.
I don't have that accuracy broken down in this report. I can get that for you, but I
You
don't
know
have that in the
something, that's
report.
not rocket science. Any book will tell you with a quarter section has the same dimensions as every damn section.
Until you survey it.
Until you survey, what do you mean until you survey?
I dare you to go find a single quarter section in the entire state of Iowa that is exactly 2,640
You
feet,
mean, there might be a difference of .0001, something like that?
which is not 2,640 feet, right, Frank?
No, I'm saying .0001 is what you're arguing about. I don't know what the entire, I don't know what this is.
So what I can do is I can subtract 4.85 off your total of 9.93. So that north line would be 5.08.
Oh, yeah, okay, we had another figure here.
4.85 would be the west line.
No, the west line, I'm talking about the north line.
I don't have a number specifically for that north line. I can
Well, why are we sitting in this, we can't answer.
Because I'm buying the total area from it, Frank. I don't need to break it down by, this foot comes from this spot and this spot.
I'm talking about
Buying
the
that
entire,
whole
just
area.
the entire thing. I'm not talking about this spot, that spot.
John, we keep going, we've got a meeting at 10.
Okay,
God damn it.
all right, so go to Mr. Wagner's objection. Regarding the notice of hearing and appraiser's report to acquire right-of-way for the new CNR levy district in Potawatomi and Harrison counties. As a member of a family who has the most to lose, it is fair that we have say against the project from the start for many reasons. My objections / concerns / questions are as follow. Are all right-of-ways 80 feet wide? Let's talk about an 8-to-1 slope that can be farmed. Is anyone being treated equally? Or is everyone being treated equally? If not, agreed to in advance, I'm concerned that the CSR rating on some of the land being taken. After the right-of-way makes the right turn, it is agreed it will go straight east to Wilson Lane. In the event that the 3.12 acres in the southeast of the northwest in section 2 is used for any purpose, then compensation will be made. I understand that there is a drainage ditch that runs from Nobles Lake southeast northwest that runs west to the lake in the wildlife refuge. This is a very old drainage ditch that runs under the fence that divides the DNR land from the federal wildlife refuge. And number 6, I'm concerned with the right turn on the levee going east to Wilson Lane.
Can I interrupt you right now?
Yep.
Let's take them one at a time. You're reading the whole objection.
Yep, I'm gonna read the whole objection and we'll go back and deal with it.
Okay, then we'll go through it.
Yep. And I want to be clear that this part of the levee needs to be reinforced to protect my farm from damage. So number 1, are all right-of-ways 80 feet? Yes, they're all 80 feet wide except for where those stockpile sites are. Those are larger.
You're saying everybody has if they have a right, if the right of way is taken, it's 80 feet. If no variance in 80 feet,
Correct.
okay? It's erected then, okay?
Yep.
And that's the answer.
Let's talk about an 8-to-1 slope that can be farmed. Is everyone being treated equally? The board has not made an official motion on that. We have discussed it. My recommendation is to eliminate the farmable slopes everywhere, except for where the levee is treated as a roadway. There's one specific area that is that piece.
In other words, there are some people, if they pick the right choice on those two, right of way purchases or rentals, right? The 8-to-1 is.
No, there's one area where the levee is actually following a farm lane. And for safety, they can currently just drive out that farm lane wherever they're going. And for safety purposes of having that farm lane be in that location, we are still recommending an 8-to-1 so that we don't have safety issues with it.
Is that the only place you're putting an 8-to-1? That's the only place?
Yes.
Okay. How about places where you cut a section of land, you run through it, and there's ownership on both sides? What are you doing in that case?
Well, yes, that's true. On the top of the ridge on Don Brothers, the levee's gonna be about a foot tall. And so we are just making it in the middle of the field, he'll just drive up over that portion.
How many of those exist, the drivovers?
Primarily just right here. Well, it is just
How
right here.
about, the furthest north you go?
So we have the right of way from that acreage up to the edge of the, whatever you call it,
And what do you-
wetland
now,
area,
what are
but
you
there is
talking
no
about?
levee till you get over to that wetland area. So it's not in the middle of the
Okay,
field.
just for clarification, this new levy doesn't go to Highway 30, does it? It doesn't,
As of right now, no, because
No,
we do not have
okay.
the state funding to carry it all the way north to Highway
okay,
30.
that answers the question. It doesn't go as far, it's an A.
Yep, it'll tie into the ridge here on 335th, and we're gonna stop there until we have the
Does
state funding to
is
cover
that
the
the
rest.
same stopping point of the old levy? Are those two levies that are now paralleling each other, are they the same stopping points?
No, the old levee extended up here to the north side of that, old Oxbow.
What do you mean, I'm talking about US 30. Stick with US 30.
Yep, the old one did not extend it to US 30, but it goes farther north than 335th.
So the new levy goes farther north and stops. As it goes to US 30, it stops further than the old levy, the Coulter levy.
The old levee extends further north than where we're stopping. The lowest area in this section is only about 4 feet deep, which is still above the actual level of the Coulter levee at that point. So we still have at least the level of protection of the old Coulter levee, just provided by the natural ground there, other than a ditch that cuts through that.
I'm under the delusion or illusion that the old levy is totally repaired. That's what I was told, totally repaired, right?
No, it is not totally repaired. We cleared the trees off of it and then we're stopped by the police department.
Well, no, that's not true, by the way. You want to get into that? I don't think you want to get into that, do you? About what?
We can get into it. We've got about 10 minutes left.
We got 10 minutes.
Well, anyway, the old levy was totally repaired according to the people whose land it goes through. Totally repaired.
The Vanman levee was repaired up to the center of section 34.
Right.
There was no repair work other than tree clearing on the Coulter levee from there north.
Well, I want to know why I can't have, an 8-to-1 on the most critical part of this levy. The most critical portion of the levy should have an 8-to-1 only because to reinforce the levy, right?
The 3-to-1 will be adequate to strengthen that levee. 8-to-1 would be better. I told the board this, an 8-to-1 would be stronger. I don't think it's necessary.
Do this board know why that's so important?
It provides more material to hold back the water.
No, I'm saying, why is it so important?
That's the tallest part of the levee.
Yeah, that part of the levy is very critical, right?
Yeah, that's the
Do they know
most
that?
at-risk piece of the levee.
Because most levees are built parallel to the water course. I mean, most levees. This levee is being built totally the opposite. In a flood, the water's gonna hit that levee straight on with a slight angle, very slight angle, straight on. And you're saying you're not reinforcing that at all?
The 3-to-1s on each side will be strong enough.
Would you put that in writing, by the way?
I think Linda's taking notes.
Would you say that in writing that levee will hold in a flood at that point?
I mean, I can't guarantee anything made out of
I know you
random
can't
fill,
guarantee,
but the
but
3-to-1.
as an engineer, you know better than that.
Frank, you're just talking on that 90-degree corner, correct?
That's right. I'm talking about where it makes a 90-degree turn. And the question I have, does anybody, if you use your imagination a little bit, and you have two levees parallel to each other, and then you make a right turn at the bottom of those two parallel levees, what's gonna happen to the flood water between those two? Did anybody know about that?
It's gonna fill up like a bathtub, so the attack is not a direct attack like it's in a river. It's gonna fill up as a bathtub. Because right now it's closed off at the bottom end. So the water's gonna fill up the lake like a bathtub, it's gonna overflow to Nobles Lake, fill that like a bathtub, and then it's gonna fill up this corner as a bathtub.
The flood waters in the last big flood that took out the railroad tracks, that took out part of Missouri Valley that I know of, it took out Highway 29. I'm talking about that flood, right? And you're telling me that it's just gonna slowly come up and fill a lake up?
Yeah, so when it broke, it did that in 2019, back in 2011, until it broke that levee. And now it's got somewhere for it to go, and that's when it starts creating a river because it has somewhere for that to go. But the water in the lake still would have been essentially zero
What happens
velocity.
to, I'm not talking about way back, I'm talking about that last flood. The last flood,
2019, when the holes were open and there was nothing to create a bathtub.
I'm talking about when they took out 29 and the railroad tracks and everything. And the question I have, if that happens now, my quarter section, what's left of it, by the way, after you get through with it, is gonna be vulnerable to an enormous amount of water. And right now, I talked to a couple of landowners south of DeSoto Avenue, and they had the same concern because of the two, I think there's two large tubes that drain Noble's Lake. Is that right?
Yes, in DeSoto Avenue, there are two tubes through the pavement. You got my location.
And that's up,
Over
that's
here.
north of me. No, wait a second. It would be,
I think it's on the.
it would be east. That road runs north and south, right? DeSoto
Yeah, so it's
Avenue.
on, DeSoto Avenue runs east-west.
Oh, east-west,
And the
okay.
twin culverts are just west of 110th.
John?
Yeah.
Could you possibly check the cost of that for us? Would that be okay?
I believe I ran those costs. That section to be made 8-to-1 was,
It's pretty high.
it was
Neighborhood is 600.
How much?
600.
600,000, I think.
Oh,
And that's the reason that the levee is currently not being built north of 335th is because we lost some funding from the state legislature that we've been trying to get back. But we've been unsuccessful so far, and so that's why we're limiting, or John is limiting what is being built to south of 335th, because that's what the funding is for. So if we go beyond that, then the landowners are going to be looking at assessments to pay for that overage.
The landowners were never told that in the beginning, before that first meeting. Before that first meeting, I was told to my face, what are you complaining about? You're not paying for it. That's what I was told. And now all of a sudden,
no.
Because
now all of a sudden, you're not building the levee, in a proper way because you haven't got the funds to even complete the levee.
We're going back to the plan that
The
was
landowners-
proposed at that time. At that time, we did have promises of funding to cover the entire levee to the north. And then that funding was taken away without our knowledge.
Yeah, well, then why did you proceed with the whole project? I mean, you don't have the money to do it with.
Because we can cover 80% of the risk by doing this levee section to the south and have a very small risk up here to the north. We can still go back and fix that later if that funding comes.
Do you know
But
where
it is a
the
very
major,
small risk.
do you know where the major flood waters came from in the last flood? Where they came across?
Yep, they came across where the Rand Peterson levee is at.
That's right, there's no levee out there.
Right.
And so what's gonna change but with the new levee? Nothing
That's a different
changes.
levy district, isn't it,
Nothing
John?
changes.
Yeah, we don't have any
We're
authority over that
not, we're
levee.
not part of that, Frank.
That's a separate.
John, I want to remind you, we got about 4 minutes left. So what else do you need to cover with us?
It's not
I don't-
separate.
I believe we've addressed
It's not separate.
Different leadership.
most of these concerns here, all of these concerns here. Our two options are we can continue this and I can write an actual response letter to this or answer the question specifically for Frank. Or we can approve where we sit.
Do we
I
need to
tell you
vote
right
on
now,
something?
All I ask is all the verbal stuff that you and I talk verbally,
Put
right?
that in writing.
I have nothing in writing. I don't know what they're gonna do with those when they decide to make this a permanent offering. I have no idea. It's all up in the air. And
So
I'm gonna
Can
tell you
we-
one thing.
can we do this, Frank? Can we do this, Frank? Can we do, because there's some things we still need to sort out. We'll talk about this here and I will prepare a written report to summarize what we've decided and we can approve
Is that good with
tentative
you guys,
to the agreement I have with Frank.
since you're the lead?
Is that, Frank, is that okay?
You're talking to them, not me.
We'll go through your list of concerns here. I'll put everything in writing that you want in writing and file that as an amendment to the report.
Right.
And it would allow the board to make their approval.
Well, with the
Waiting
board,
for those.
is the board gonna accept that?
That's why I was talking to them.
Do we need to continue this public hearing?
We sure can, and I can go through that, and get all those things in writing for Frank and file that. I need to get some of those things in writing from the McIntosh, change, adjust the Kinsinger numbers. So there's a few things that we
Okay.
can adjust, and we can come back and just do this as a continued hearing.
Okay,
That would be good.
You need
The only
a,
thing I would really be happy with, because you're building a very weak levee when it comes out north term. I don't want any tubes in that levee at that point. Is that fair enough? The surface water on my section of the land, is established, from the north line. It doesn't come down from the north. The surface water comes on the land itself, and that it goes off. At Old Ditch, and the lake itself, you're putting the lake inside that area.
Yep.
That's gonna take the surface water to the north.
And we've talked about this, and I disagree with that, because the natural drainage for this portion of the refuge is through that waterway on your property.
That's right.
Yeah, and so we have to maintain that drainage by law. I don't have an option. I have to maintain drainage for that surface water here to the west of your
So
property.
you have to put a tube in that portion of,
I do, by law.
well,
John, do you need a motion to continue the
Yes, so we
public
need
hearing
for
to a
continuation, we need
a
to set a
specific
time and
date?
date today.
to another specific date?
Yes.
Or a date to be named?
We can do a date to be named, but we would then have to send out notice again. So that's up to the board if we want to do,
Tim, I have a question though too. Do we have any more deadlines or we lose money again?
the only deadline is June 30th, and we are working on getting that dirt moved. But that June 30th means that we would need to have this right of way approved and paid before June 30th, which I think we've still got plenty of time to do that.
So what do you think? 2 weeks, we should be good?
Yeah, let me double check the, 2 weeks from today does not work. I have another hearing that day.
Just
Can
get
you-
around about
Can you handle
day.
it next week?
I think we can have it next week.
Here?
The 16th, we can do that.
You guys good with coming here
We
again?
love to drive it.
All right, then with that, Chairman Shea, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing until
can I guess you?
May 16th.
Not, oh, sorry.
At what time?
How much time do you need, John?
Nine's fine. If we want to do it
9
before the
a.m.?
meeting again, that'd be fine.
Do we need to be present for that?
No, we'll talk about this and get everything in writing, and I can get you that amendment before. I've got your address, we can overnight it again, so you're comfortable.
Okay.
Okay.
Everything you said today, except for that.
I got a motion to continue this till, May 16th at 9 a.m. here. All in favor, or I need a motion to approve
You
that.
need a second. We got a motion.
Second.
Second, would you do a roll call?
Smith, Brian Shea,
Yep.
Tony Smith, right?
Yes.
Right now, I'm getting good. Brian Reeves,
Yes.
John Straight,
Yes.
Tim Wickman,
Sure.
Scott Bell,
Yes.
and Jeff
Which
Jorgensen.
one is so up there?
I think you missed me.
Second from the left. No, third from the
We
left.
missed one, Albert.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned. Okay,
Thank you,
Brian,
yes, John.
one thing, the spending thing, I
How you
met
doing?
with ABC, we met with